One. Hey, folks, welcome back to the Mañana No Mas podcast. Today, I'm excited. I'm bringing a new guest to you guys, someone that I've met over the last year. Turns out we have a similar interest with traveling on the road and doing the RV thing. I call it van life. He's a full-time RVer. Folks, no further ado, I'd love to introduce you to Ron Gordon. Ron, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Can't wait to get started.
Well, this is kind of, it's so nice hosting a podcast because I don't have all the pressure, right? I basically just open up the communication, open up the channel and let you talk about the projects you're working on, maybe an origin story about how you got started. And a lot of the folks we listen that listen to us are entrepreneurs, business starters, or lately we've been having a lot of folks that never wanted to run their own business. I'm running into a lot of folks in our audience that, because of circumstances over the last couple of years, they're finding themselves saying, oh crud, I got to figure this out on my own. And I think that's really, really interesting. For years, entrepreneurs were focused on people that always wanted to be entrepreneurs, that always wanted to run their own business. And now I'm starting to see a lot of folks that never intended it. They were going to, go to school, get a good job and retire. And then something happened to the good job. And now they're focused on, well, how do I do this on my own? And so it'd be really cool to address some of that.
Very nice. Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Where should I start? Wow. I'm not sure. When I think back, I'm not sure I ever saw myself running a business, but it kind of all started in college with total frustration with my instructors because I was pretty critical. There were a couple of guys in my group that were Vietnam veterans. And I remember one morning when class, the old 10-minute rule, if the instructor doesn't show up in 10 minutes, you leave. Well, three of us were still sitting there. And this is like 15 minutes. There's a huge snowstorm in upstate New York. And we're sitting there. And the guy walks in, he goes, wow, the three of you are still here. And we looked at each other and said, yeah, we're serious. And I realized, kind of because I was also working full-time while going to college, that a lot of the stuff I was being taught didn't really work in the real world. And I had a lot of frustration with my instructors. And I always saw myself, I'm going to go out and get a lot of experience. Then I'm going to teach college.
Yeah.
And after getting a lot of experience, I decided teaching college wasn't what I really wanted to do, because I had worked my way through several different business opportunities as well as jobs. And I just decided at that point in time, I was unemployable. I gave myself a label, unemployable. And I went through a couple of entrepreneurial startups. And then I decided the best way I can help in this world is to continue offering my college teaching, if you will, on an entrepreneurial basis with my own business. That's how I got to where I am today.
Sweet. It's amazing how parallel our two stories are. I was working two jobs and trying to go to community college, and I didn't even have a car. And I was like bumming rides from people, and in a blizzard, got to school one night. And I walk in as everybody's leaving, and they're high-fiving each other and cheering. And what's happening? And they go, well, they called it because of snow. Lucky us, it's a snow day, like kids in grade school. And I thought, I'm working two jobs, busting my hump to try and get an education here. I'm on chapter 12. The rest of the class is on chapter 4, and the professor doesn't even show up for the class. I said, this is it. I can't do this. I evidently in my particular case, I'm going to get more done on my own, and now that I'm in my 50s and I look back on it, I think that was one of the most pivotal decisions for me, because it was like, I'm not going to depend on other people. If it's going to happen, I got to make it happen. And I got to find people I can put on my team to help me make it happen, whether that's mentors or one-on-one instruction or whatever.
Exactly. And you're leading a happier life because of it.
I'd like to think so. It's a little late in the game to go back and change our minds, but I remember vividly just that feeling of, it was like a feeling of betrayal. It was, I'm paying you to have a deliverable for me. And I couldn't understand all these kids, but they're adults, right? High-fiving each other and celebrating I'm like, you already got the class. Like, you already got here and they're telling you to go home and you're happy about it. There's something wrong. That's definitely something wrong, because you're paying for the service. So I was at a loss. logically, using critical thinking, nothing aligned for me in that environment. And so I had to pull myself from it.
Hmm. Yeah, we can always go back and get a job, but a job, as one of my friends reminds me all the time, just over broke.
Just over
And
broke.
job, just over broke. And but I have no desire. I have absolutely no desire. To me, it's incredibly stifling to do that. And again, we're surrounding ourselves with those same kids that left your class.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a guy that runs our Boy Scout troop in the area. And he's pretty funny the way he phrases things. But and he's paraphrasing somebody else. He never takes the credit for inventing a phrase, right? But he says what's interesting about life is that all these A students end up working for the C students.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the C students go out and build businesses and you know, pull up their bootstraps and make something happen. And the A students, they do a really great job of finishing school and getting that job, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the people that know why, the C's and D's, if you will, can always hire the people that know how. And our educational system is basically based on how to do this, how to do that. But the kid who drops out of school or goes out and just starts a business has learned real quick that if he's going to eat or she is going to get anything done, they have to figure out why. They're why. Yeah. And the educational system doesn't teach us why. It teaches us how. And until we get, I think the statistics are in a good MBA program takes you back to why. Other than that.
Yeah. Yeah. You just leading in with that reminds me of Dan Dominguez is another friend that I've met through the LinkedIn process. And he's part of the Why Institute. And that's a big thing, you know, is like, you got to drive people down to their core, what makes them almost like a CVI score, right? Like how is somebody hardwired? What's their driver? And then how are they going to, you know, there's the why they're going to take action, but then how do they make that happen? You know, mm-hmm. It's a big magic.
Yeah. Before Ross Perot was Ross Perot, as we know him, when he was very, very successful, I think it was with EDS, they asked him what the best investment in the country was. And he said, what you do is you go to the ships in New York City and you find an immigrant coming into this country that doesn't understand the English language, has no money in his pockets, and put everything he got behind him. Because that person's going to figure out why real quick.
Yep.
And they see nothing but opportunity. They figure out why. They know why they're there.
Yeah.
And they see opportunity. They just make things happen.
Yeah, make it happen. And you got to put in the effort. You know, I'm really big on action. A lot of people have great ideas and they might have that why part figured out, but you know, John Maxwell says leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And I always think to myself, well, what causes influence, right? Well, it's some type of action you take. Something that you do creates that influence and builds that leadership that, you know, can amass, you know, bulk activity.
Yeah, I think keeping your dream alive is critically important. If the dream, there's another saying, if the dream is big enough, the facts don't matter. And if we can just keep our dream alive, I think oftentimes of Arnold Schwarzenegger. I didn't mind doing 200 more sit-ups. It got me that much closer to my goal. And he's constantly talking about having a real clear vision, and most people don't have that, or if they have it, it's fleeting. They don't keep it in front of them. They don't keep reminding themselves. Sometimes every hour, sometimes every 15 minutes, you got to look up, why am I doing this, and stay focused on that. Then we figured out the brain's incredible.
It is so bizarre that you mentioned Arnold, because when you were saying find an immigrant, that was immediately who I thought of. It was the guy got here, he didn't have any money, you know, and he got out to Venice Beach. If you ever saw any of the documentaries or stories, you know, next thing you know, the guy's the governor of California, and people see that part. They go, oh, he was a famous actor, he was the governor of California. And it's like, no, you missed all the work. Like people are always around to look at the guy on the podium and go, oh, he's lucky he won the race. No, he's not lucky he won the race. It's all the training and the work and the practice and everything that got there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's another guy that comes to my mind right away too, and I forget his last name. His first name is Mark, and it doesn't come to me right now, but he was a British Special Forces guy. And some of the stories, he's got a book out called Jump. And he got kicked out of the Eco Challenge. That used to be a 7-day race. And his team totally disappeared. And they dispatched helicopters to go find the team and stuff. He was back in the United States. So he was forbidden from ever creating or ever competing again. Somehow he bought the rights to Eco Challenge and put it on TV for a while, made a fortune, came to this country. And he is the brains behind the Survivor series.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and I forget his last name, but The Apprentice, Survivor, all that. I think he's married to Norma Downey now. Mark, but his story is just incredible. And his book is titled Jump. And it's fascinating because he talks about, being a paratrooper with the British, and you go to the door and jump, figure it out on the way down.
Yeah. But sometimes you got to jump off the cliff and build your wings on the way down.
Yeah, absolutely. Every successful person says that. Now it's hard to do because we're terrified. We look at that long ways down and think all the things that could go wrong. But if we focus on all the things that are going to go right, and some days that's hard.
Well, let's do the listeners a favor, because I feel like we're giving them a flavor of our philosophies, you and I chatting. But who's Ron Gordon? Like who are you? What do you do? What value do you bring to a client relationship? Something like that, and give folks an idea of how they can find out more about you.
Okay. Let's see. During 2020, 21, so my client said some really cool things. I'll start with that. And I was described as a silent partner by one client who had a 400% growth in his business during the pandemic. And then another, one of my clients who was literally shut down for months. She was in the fitness business. Gave me a really, really very cool review. And it just, to sum it all up, says he'll never let you down. He's with you no matter what happens. And we experienced that. So who am I? Oh, wow. I think all the descriptions I would like to attach to myself, I'll just throw out a bunch of words here. An adventurer, an athlete, an educator, someone really committed to other people's successes as well as my own. But I firmly believe if I can help enough people get what they want, I will end up with what I want, which is Zig Ziglar's old quote. I see myself living to 100. I've already told my kids we're all going for a bike ride on my 100th birthday. We can't decide if it's a 2-wheel, 3 or 4-wheel bike. It'll probably be downhill, although I want to keep the option for at least level ground open. But I'm excited. I'm excited about what I do. The value I think I bring to people is I'm pretty motivating, pretty inspiring. When we're working together, we talk about zero limits, maximum results. That's actually a short tagline on my logo. In my company is called Gordon Training Systems. And we have a couple divisions within there. One is 6-figure trainers, where I help people specific to the fitness industry. And that's, I think that's about, I'm a dad. Love that part. I have 4 children and 3 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren, including twin boys, my great-grandchildren. Wow. I told my mother once I wanted a twin brother. She told me that it wasn't going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
And I wanted it for my children. That didn't happen. Grandchildren, that didn't happen. But great-grandchildren. And my one of the things I like a lot about that is I was able to take my great-grandson and introduce him to the trampoline and doing things. And now he's competing as a gymnast. And he says, Grandpa, I'm taking over as a gymnast in the family. And I was like, that's okay. And the backstory on that was I grew up pretty athletic in high school, and we didn't have a gymnastics team, and I really wanted one. So I was a walk-on gymnast in college and never been on a gymnastics team before. My claim to fame was they didn't throw me off the team.
Yeah.
They threw some guys off, but not me. So that was my claim to fame. But that's a little bit about who I am.
Nice. The fitness thing always catches my attention, I think, because my own athletic pathway came with so many waves up and down. Like I loved playing soccer, but as a elementary school kid, I didn't get to pursue that. And then our high school said, oh, we're going to start a soccer team. So I was on the very first soccer team that my high school had. But when I signed up for that team, I was a little on the pudgy side, couldn't run real good. They put me back on defense. And that's fine. I ended up playing semi-pro soccer till I was 29 years old. And I loved playing right fullback. I'm like a brick wall back there. But I remember that was sophomore year when we launched the soccer team. And we lost every game we signed up for. It was not a pretty sight. And I wasn't pretty at playing either. I mean, I could play 90 minutes of ball, but I wasn't fit. The summer between sophomore and junior year, I got a girlfriend that lives 6 miles away. So I worked at a pizza shop at night, and I would jog to her house and sit by the pool with her for a couple of hours, jog home, and then go back to work at the pizza shop. So here I am for the whole summer running 12 miles a day. So the first practice of junior year, we used to run from the school to the soccer field, which was about 2.5 miles. And I used to, the earlier year was like, I'd run for a block and then I'd walk and meet everybody, 20 minutes after practice started. First practice junior year, I took off running and I'm standing at the field and nobody's there, and it was just that difference, that confidence level that came from that level of fitness at that moment was like, I get it. Like there was like at that moment, there was a switch that went off. I was always good at riding bikes, and in the neighborhood, we'd always ride bikes everywhere and deliver newspapers and stuff. But there was something about being the absolute worst athlete on a team, on a really bad team, to moving to a mediocre team and being one of the best athletes on the field. And it was like the confidence level and the way that I presented myself, the way I spoke to people, everything was different. Everything changed. And when I was working as a corporate trainer for Ducati in my 40s, I got really fat, almost 280 pounds, flying, restaurant food, rental cars, all of that. And after a couple of years of that, I realized I can't really sit on an airplane and be comfortable. And that was a problem for me. So me and my wife did a fat camp. I dropped about 60 pounds. I pulled the bicycle back out of the garage. And for the last 4 years, I like red meat, wine, beer. And if I'm going to consume that stuff, I got to burn it. And so I bicycle 60, 75 miles a week. And again, it's that going from that heavy sedentary person that was ineffective to someone that has high metabolism, energy, a body awareness. It's really made a difference in how life operates. And so I truly believe that your physical fitness leads to fiscal fitness. And I try to have a message about that, but it's difficult. And when you talked about your fitness journey earlier, when you and I had spoken, it really lit up a bunch of synapses in my brain.
Yeah, there's so many good things about what you just described. I mean, you had a dream. Your dream, at first I thought you were leading to, well, I had my wife move 6 miles away.
So I had my wife move 6 miles away.
Yeah, I got shape.
That's a good plan. That's a good plan.
But the power of the dream, the power of your dream, the way you transformed that was through the fitness, and the surprising offshoot was how that all improved your life. So yes, the dream got you in better shape, and the better shape just transfers to everything. No question about it. It's a matter of life and death.
I know you're from the East Coast and I'm from the East Coast. I was raised outside of Philadelphia. And in my little town, most of the dads, at least in my circle, most of the dads weren't home after work. Most of the dads were at the VFW or a place called the Elbow Room, slamming a couple of beers after a shift. And I think back to when I was a kid and everybody's dad was 45 to 50 years old. And like when we would get skateboards or bicycles or whatever, and how many fathers would try to do something and get hurt, crash a bicycle in the street and be hurt, be injured, be whatever. And now I look at my own walk, my own journey, and I compare it to other kids I grew up with. And I go, all of us from this generation to that generation, again, only in my circles that I'm talking about, it's wholesale change, absolute wholesale change. Most of the men that I knew growing up don't live anymore. They're all passed away, and here I am. I'm probably the healthiest I've ever been, and I'm 55 years old this year. It's really remarkable. And I don't know how to, you deal with this all the time. So I guess that's why I'm bringing it up and why I'm curious. How do you promote a fitness message as a lifestyle change or benefit to a lot of folks that you deal with?
Yeah, I am mostly at this point in my life, I've transferred into working on the business side of things. But
Yeah.
to back up a few years ago, there was a lot of modeling, honestly. I would be in a situation where I owned some gyms. I started a CrossFit gym. I had a bicycle riding center, and because of my commitment and discipline and working out, I was able to still jump in there with the 20-year-olds. Now I'm not going to beat them. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I earned a lot of respect because I could hold my own. And I heard all the time, when I'm your age, I want to be like you. And so I, that starts it in terms of that. We also I had a trailer, and this is kind of funny. My target market was actually older people. I've trained all kinds of athletes for Ironman competitions, D1 scholarships for high school rowers. I've done all that. But the sweet spot for me was taking people who really didn't see a future and showing them how they could change their life. Average age in my gym was 42 years old.
Nice.
And we had a sign on my trailer that we would take the events that says improving human performance for your first 100 years. Well, these guys would go out, and they were average 42, and they'd compete with people that could be their kids, and they held their own. They'd come back and say, can we change that sign, for improving human performance for your last 40 years?
For your last 40 years. Yeah.
And so, I mean, they had fun. Who you hang around with is critically important. We created, because it was a small gym type of atmosphere all across the board, no matter what program, they were with their companions, they were with their equals, and everybody there was committed to improving their lifestyle. And that just gained so much momentum so fast. So I'm always telling people, no matter where you are, no matter what you do, if you can't find a right program, at least hang around with the people
The right
who
people.
are successfully fit, perhaps a little more fit, but that are accommodating and will bring you in and encourage you. That goes so far.
Yeah.
And it's just, we're the average of 5 people we hang around in any given area. If we want to improve our finances, look at the 5 people we're around, upgrade. Want to improve our fitness, look at the 5 people, upgrade. And sometimes you pay for that, and sometimes it's organic. It's all how you structure your life. We are, as much as we're individuals, we're also a tribe. We're a group, and we do much better in a group. Even if I'm living out here in the desert, we form little groups, and it's a 3:00 town hall meeting in one group. Every day at 3:00, people come out and sit around the fire. Sometimes there's a fire in the afternoon, usually, if the wind is not too bad.
If the wind is not too bad.
The wind is not too bad.
The community aspect is really, really big. I'm thinking about the different learning projects, or like speaker, author, coach groups that I've been a member of, or just Grant Cardone's 100X program, it's just this giant, thousands and thousands and thousands of people. But sometimes I find that when those communities get, I'll use the term oversized, right? Because to me, they're oversized. It's like you feel like you get lost in the mix, or that the value of association can get watered down if it gets too big. What do you think are some maybe target goals on community building, or how you look at building community with the groups you work with?
Well, if I were to go back to my previous gym environment, the number, and I've been parts of gyms where we have 3,000 members, YMCA director with a couple thousand members, small gym, bicycle training, triathlon training. The magic number is 150. We can maintain 150 relationships, but I find even at that, we're stretched.
Yeah.
That's pretty hard to do. So I always kept my organizations, I preferred smaller organizations. The big ones, you end up with a general manager, and you end up with other people, and you can have subsets of 150 people. But for the small gym, the magic number seems to be around 150 people. And from what I've seen, that's about it. So it's kind of like the high school. You know, the number, at least a few years ago, they did a lot of research when I was CEO and principal of a Montessori school. I remember reading an article. The ideal high school size is 750 students. And if you have 4,000, 10,000 students, which is very common, if you want to play basketball and you're not 7 feet tall,
Yeah.
you're not going to play. If you have a high school, 750 students, you want to play basketball, you can fog a mirror, you're going to start probably in the center. and what happens there is leadership is built because you have to, it's a small pond. So everybody's leadership has to be developed. So
Yeah.
in that situation, and given a choice where I'd put my kids in school, it's a small school, just so that they can exercise that leadership and develop.
Have a chance to flourish. Yeah. I remember the difference in moving from Northern California to Southern California. We used to live kind of in the like Big Basin National Park area in between Santa Cruz and San Jose. And my son played baseball, and it was like a bunch of dads hanging out at the park, you know, little flip up igloo coolers with beer in them, and you know, watching the kids play and just having a good time, you know. And then we moved down to Southern California, and Hayden had thoughts that maybe he would want to play, you know, baseball for the school, and we got him into the neighborhood team. And dads were showing up and having like pitching practice with their 10-year-old, like they're scouts at the field or something. You know, it was just like, it was lunacy for me anyway. I know that a lot of people are into this, but for our family and our commitment to that level of organized athletics, it was out of our scope. And Hayden, my son, he was already at like second grade, third grade, and the kids he was playing with had been playing like serious ball for 3 years already. It was they had clinic coaches come in and work with them on how to stretch, how to run, I was like, they're in second and third grade, man, let them enjoy the game. My daughter wanted to try out for soccer, and same thing, but she's older, so it was that much further behind. And I can remember school being the place where you'd get to try things. You know, hey, I think I'll try the saxophone. I think I'll try the guitar. I think I'll try soccer. And you would try things and find out through experience what resonated with you as a person. But at these bigger schools down here, it's too late. If you want to try something or experiment with something, you're already too late.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So interesting. My goodness. I'm enjoying this conversation. Even if we lose the listeners along the way, I'm enjoying the crud out of it.
Me too.
Tell me about like today. Let's say that you're in the market for a new client today. Who's like a good avatar for you or a good target acquisition?
Really good question. I would say someone who is in business. It doesn't have to be the fitness business, although I have a lot of experience there. I also have a tremendous amount of experience in any small business, largely from a perspective of being a business broker for a while, where I would find buyers and I would find sellers of business. So I get to really see what it is to have a business that's marketable, if you will. And of course, that's something with the cash flow that the owner can walk away from.
Yeah.
That's where we all want to be, no matter where we are in a business. So my forte is helping people get to that permanent profitability place where they can still go to work, but to be able to choose whether or not to go to work. A lot of people start businesses, especially in today's world. You mentioned this at the beginning. They didn't want to really be there, so they start the business and it ends up being a job.
Yep.
And sometimes when we're in business for ourselves, our boss is the worst boss we've ever had, because it's us. And
Yeah.
so taking people from having a job or a hobby, if you will, with some income into a legit business, that's what I specialize in. And that usually starts with two things: personal development and marketing. Those are the two things that we need to work with right off the bat. And because we all have a lot of garbage about our personal lives and what's possible. And then suddenly we've got this business, it's consuming us. And then we think, okay, what is possible? And I help people dislodge that thinking and go to the next level. And I do that through teaching, mentoring. And it's an interesting thing because the consultant comes to you with all kinds of best practices. We do this, do this, do this.
Yeah.
A coach comes to you, you can do this. We'll draw it out of you. And the mentor is right smack down the middle. Sometimes they're a consultant, sometimes they're a coach. But like I said earlier, I'm the silent partner right there with them as they go through all the aha moments. That's what I love in life, is the aha moment. If it's a fitness thing, that's great. If it's a business thing, it's equally as good at this point in my life. So boy, I'm really traveling here on your question. It's a business person, probably in their 45 to 60 category. They may be thinking about what's next with their life, what's next with their business. That's where I can make the biggest impact. And occasionally it's the 20 somethings, if they're hungry and they want to learn.
Yeah. Finding a 20 something that's hungry and wants to learn is a challenge, but I'm finding that when you find that rare person, when you find that unicorn, man, they can be a powerhouse to be reckoned with. They can accomplish a lot because they have that energy level that, you know, it's like if you find a puppy that listens to commands, right? It's like, oh my goodness, you know, where can I go with this?
Right.
Your conversation that you were just having reminded me of, it wasn't even a paying customer, it was like a friend. So I have an older friend. He had a business that he had started decades ago, and it was fairly stable, but it was kind of curtailing off a little bit, and everything's paid for. Everything's owned, nothing's financed, money's in the bank. And I didn't realize this about this person because he was a friend of mine, but he finally confided in me and he said, you know, I'm struggling. I get depressed. I have to work this thing all the time. It's like 6 days a week. I just want to retire. He goes, I always said when I got money to a certain level in the bank, I was just going to retire. And he goes, so I have a hard time with it. He goes, part of me wants to sell it, and the other part of me is just so frustrated. I just want to put a key in the door, lock it, and walk away. He said, my problem is the guilt with the jobs that are there, the people that work for me. I want to take care of them and stuff. And I said, hey, hold on. You know, I kind of do this for motorcycle dealerships. Let me come take a look. And so I went to his business and I looked at their processes. I looked at like location of like where shipping and receiving was and where the tables were and missteps. And I mean, all that. I spent 2 days there. I wrote him a proposal. I said, this is what I would do if it was my business. I said, my goal is to get you to not work 6 days a week. Within 6 months, I only want you to go in Friday morning for half a day and go over a 1-page financial summary with this person that we're going to make your operating manager. And he was like, he's so young. But he's that unicorn I just talked about. Mm-hmm. So we promoted the guy. We made a few changes structurally to the business. COVID happened right after that, and their business shot up because their business was actually in demand during the pandemic. And this old dude is working half a day a week. He's going camping. He's going, you know, he has a cabin in the mountains. He's and every now and then we have a conversation, and he's like, I can't believe I would have put a key in the door and walked away from this, and it's better than it's ever been. It's better than I ever knew it could have been.
Right.
You know, and it's sometimes, no matter how good of a business person you are, no matter how many books you read, no matter how smart you are, sometimes you just need that fresh set of eyes to come in and go, have you thought about going this way? You know, and I can see how you could drive a lot of value to people like that.
Oh yeah. That's a great example. You're doing good work because that person has a whole new outlook on life now.
That part is super, super rewarding. And I'm just going to be super transparent now. It's like, that was a buddy that I helped out, right? What I need to do is make that a case study and then turn that into, this is a service I'll offer any business for a percentage of financial gains, or, you know, pay for performance example, or, you know, a $10,000 coaching fee, or however you phrase that. But it's the hard thing in life is always like, you take those successes and then you go, okay, how do I monetize that? And quite honestly, you have to ask yourself, am I justified to monetize that? Like, is that really something is that duplicable, and is it ethical to run that on a series of people?
Exactly. And earlier in this conversation, we talked about that whole mental piece. And
Yeah.
those are exactly the questions that we have to struggle with when we're helping someone go to the next level. We struggle with them ourselves too. No matter what level we're at. That's one thing I learned a long time ago. And I trained a lot of CEOs for a while in my business. And the CEOs, they struggle with it too. We look at them and we think, oh, it's all together, everything's all set.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got mentors, they got everybody. And so, yes, excellent point. But you can do it. I'm here to encourage you. Go do it. Just put
Go
it
do
up
it.
there. Just put it up there and see what happens. You got a case study. That's a huge part of it. And this guy's going to give you an awesome testimonial and review.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such good stuff. It's you think about all the relationships that, you're gifted or that you gain along the way in a lifetime. And it's only been recently that I've been able to look back and go, that's the value that person added to me. That's the value I was, gifted to be able to add to someone else. And you look back at that and you go, wow, it's really amazing how coming together with other people, like you said, having team, right, or a tribe makes things a reality as opposed to trying to forge forward on your own all the time.
Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah. Good
And
stuff.
we're the average of the 5 people we hang around. We get around the right 5 and we cannot help ourselves. We are going there.
Well, I want to honor your time, and I'm so thankful that you agreed to join me on the show. If folks want to follow up with you about possible coaching or mentoring and growing their business, Ron, what's your favorite way to be gotten in touch with?
Right now, it would be email, which would be rg@sixfiguretrainers.com. And I know we're going to put that down below, but
Be right in the bottom.
yeah, that's the best way to get in touch with me. And we are in a complete state of transition. As soon as the websites are up, we'll add those also. Things happen, I guess, for a reason. We had all kinds of website problems and we were trying to solve them. And finally I said, you know what, this is a sign. We just need to revamp everything. And all of a sudden the energy came up. It's like, yeah, that's what we're going to do. So, but we're right in the middle of that right now. So that's the best way to get in touch with me.
That's phenomenal. If somebody's new to business, brand new, like they just left a corporate position, middle management, ran the marketing department somewhere, or ran the PR department, they come to you, what's one of the first things you start to look at someone that's new to business?
Well, usually, and I have this available also, I always sit down with people and have half an hour conversation with them. And what I'm looking for is, do they have the dream? Do they have the desire to be reasonably successful in business? And there's a whole series. I used to have a checklist of things we'd go through, and every one of those becomes a conversation. But if people, whether they find themselves involuntarily looking, or they just are at a point in life where they got a lot of energy left and, hey, I've got this hobby, or I've always wanted to try something. If the dream is big enough, and it can be just a little kernel of a dream, but if it's there, if it's in the back of their mind, if it's coming forward, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. At the end of the day, they may or may not do something with it, but those that are really ready, I mean, they'll do something. It doesn't have to be extravagant. We're not talking about building another Microsoft,
Yeah.
but how can we make an impact on the world? Because that's really important as we move ahead. And there's nothing better than a business.
See, and here I thought I was pitching you this awesome softball where you would just say, hey, I've got a 5-day training course coming up. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Kurt.
Well, I do. As a matter of fact, I have a 5-day training course coming up. It's called Mentoring and Marketing Bootcamp Challenge, and it starts April 4th. And what we're going to do is 5 days of mentoring, the same types of stuff I give my VIPs. The price is really, really reduced. It's a really good price, but there's 5 days of really building the basics of a marketing program, and we cover so much stuff. It's awesome. And that starts April 4th.
Excellent. I know that Ron's going to forward me a link to that, folks. If whether you follow me on Mañana No Mas channels or you come back to look at the replay of this podcast, we'll have a link in the description if you want to join that. And if it's after that challenge or 5-day session, I'm sure that Ron will have something to follow that up with too. So make sure you follow up with Ron, get in touch with him, get on his list, and make sure that you stay informed. Ron, I want to thank you so much. I know that the viewers got some value out of our session today. And with that, folks, I think it's time to say goodbye.
Thanks, Kurt. It's been awesome.
No worries, man. I loved
Take
having
care.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.